We'll do a bunch of stuff. I love that tune.
Hello and good evening. Welcome to Field Talk. I am the Field, also known as Field of Bears, here to remind you that socialism always ends in starvation and genocide. I am incredibly frustrated because nothing is working properly. Oh, and I have no chat open because of course I don't. Everything has to just go horribly today. Everything. Yes, watch me spiral out of control for your own amusement, please. Can't. But of course. You are saying things I don't know what you said. I'm going to start the monologue now. I'm trying to remain under control at the moment, and I guess it comes off as soft and supple. Thank you. These days, hatred is a common theme. Helpful, I guess. It's a common theme. You can't seem to escape hearing somebody accusing somebody else of hating some group or class of people. I'm not entirely sure that these accusations are always genuine. That is why they are. That is that they are believed by the accusers, since the accusation is usually deployed in situations that shall gain the accuser in some way. However, I've gotten rather good at spotting vitriol. There's a segment of the population ready to spit in your face if you step out of line with their mores by a single toe's breadth. They wait, seething, simmering, scheming for the moment that a target appears for them to erupt their pent-up anger upon. They rigidly demand compliance to their increasingly unpredictable whims, and their attacks are generated from feelings rather than any codified violation, rendering them immune to argument. Verily, a relationship with such an individual is something like a living hell. Oh, why, thank you. I do try to be visually appealing. Hatred is caustic to every individual it comes into contact with. This is a fact. If you're the one on the receiving end of genuine hatred, it will damage you. But woe to the one who carries hatred with them. If you do actively hate, then it is impossible to ever escape hatred, and you see it everywhere because it veils everything you see. Since you hate, you will think that everyone else hates you, and you'll hate them for it, dragging yourself into a positive feedback loop in a downward spiral until there's little left of you but your hatred for all and everything. Congratulations, you're a misanthrope, and humanity disgusts you. Here's the trouble, though. That guy in the mirror is a human too, and you see in him all of the things that you hate about humanity, and more clearly, because there's no hiding from yourself if you really want to look. Oh, well, I guess I can't really compete with that space battleship. But I will have this monologue. I'll keep the show a bit short. The hateful person needs to vent some of that poison, that bile, that spleen on somebody, anybody else. If they don't, it will drive them to suicide or homicide. And though it is not exactly optimal for anybody, it's easier than letting go of hatred. That's the trouble with the expedient, though, isn't it? The expedient option is rarely the optimal one, and is often the worst one in the long run, compared to the difficult one. Anybody who was in an abusive relationship can tell you how damaging the spleen venting strategy can be in the long run. And some can't tell you anything because they're dead. The thing is, once these victims find some virtuous friends or return to a virtuous family they were rebelling against. Sorry, Ruben has Harris on. Ruben should have. Well, that would be pretty great, actually. I'd love to go on Ruben. I don't know if my sound quality is good enough for his show, though. Yeah, because they're dead. It's harder to keep track of where I am on the screen, guys. That's why I print things, but my printer is being a jerk. So, trouble is expedient. The thing is, once these virtuous rebellions, then the hatred that they had been forced to absorb suddenly becomes unacceptable to everybody who cares about the victim. So we know that one individual venting their spleen on another is never acceptable. This is good. However, the recent dust-up with Chick-fil-A has demonstrated that it is acceptable to vent spleen on whole groups of individuals. An individual has a face. You can call a woman a bitch and see the fire in her eyes, then know that was a bad idea. You can tell a man that he has failed his family, and you can see his countenance fall. You can see the effects of your words, and so can everybody else. Maybe you lack empathy, but the people who saw what you did and don't lack empathy will teach you to at least pretend. A group has no face. There's no reaction from a group in real terms, only from individuals within that group who may have taken the hateful words personally, and maybe they ought to have. This does give the hateful person the lame excuse that they were not attacking that person in particular, or even all of the members of the group he or she had just vented bile upon. But will narrow their intentions after the fact in order to avoid responsibility for the response by the people who are just subject to their bile. Rightly, that excuse doesn't fly when certain groups are subjected to that hatred. But conversely, one group is not afforded that consideration. Looking at you, HuffPo, You corporate shill rag infested by misanthropes. No, you don't have to hate gay people to disagree with the redefinition of marriage. And that's the thing, isn't it? I've been chasing this idea. I think there are people who use hatred in a mercenary way. I think there are people who feign outrage, who pretend to be insulted, who act out emotions that they don't actually have in order to achieve some sort of social goal. And I think you see a lot of that on Twitter. But I also think that there really are some people in the world who do have actual hatred in their hearts and in their souls. And you can see these people. Well, you can see there we go. You can see these people most often in individual relationships, and these relationships are called abusive because I think that it is abusive to subject anyone to the venting of your own self-hatred. And I've been chasing this idea. Like, I think that hatred is such a caustic thing to have inside you. I don't think you can actually exempt yourself from your hatred when you actually carry it. I think as long as you carry hatred, I think that's an overly cynical way to look at things, Space Battleship. And I think that you're conflating happiness with euphoria or distraction as well. Because I'm not entirely sure that you can actually consider anybody happy until they've had their last day. Tally things up at the end and see if you've had a happy life. Which means, was your life worth it? Did you justify all of the suffering you endured and maybe inadvertently caused, or maybe caused on purpose? Did you justify it? Was your life worth it? Did you pick up your damn cross and carry it? Tell you what, on your last day, if you manage to do that, you might die with a smile on your face. Now, MZAF, that is an interesting point. Something that is really going to get a little bit kind of theologically here, because I think that I think that the devil will play with our emotions, and hatred is an emotion that might arise in you whether you like it or not, but you definitely shouldn't feed into it because it will eventually destroy you. But there are other emotions that are very close to hatred that can slide into them. And through these sort of adjacent emotions, you can get from something like compassion all the way to hatred. And I'll go through this with you a little bit. Compassion is very close to pity, and pity is very close to contempt, and contempt is just a hair's breadth away from hatred. If you have compassion for someone, you might want to help them. You might you might want to go in and help. If you have pity for someone, you might want to save someone. If you have contempt for someone, then they're so far beneath you that they can't do anything without your help. And then I it's not that hard to slide from that into actually hating. Well, yes, an adult has much more defense against verbally expressed hatred than a child does, obviously. But it is still an abusive way to treat somebody you're in a relationship with. The more mature and the more courageous a person an adult is, then the more likely they'll just cut you off and say, "No, I won't take your abuse." Just because something is abuse, it's like a matter of degree. Like abusing a child verbally is obviously worse than abusing an adult verbally because a child can't defend against it. Hello, B West. I hope you didn't miss the monologue. Hey, Veteran Bear. I'm glad to see you. We're talking about hatred and what it is and what it does to the person who carries hatred, the hateful person. And I think it's like having a poison factory inside of you. And I think that like the more you hold it in, the more you hold it in, the more it'll build up. So, oh, it was a good monologue. I'll put this. I'll start remembering to put the typed versions on my blog so that you guys can read them later. What do you think? Actually, yeah. What do you think about that? I want to know. Ugh, veteran bear. Now that is just heretical. Why would you put bacon in the microwave? I want to know what you guys think about putting up uh, the the typed version of the monologue, like the write up on the blog. There we go. Yeah. So I think that carrying hatred inside of you is like carrying a poison factory inside your body, and like you can actually pick a hateful person out on sight. Like their skin doesn't look right, their hair isn't lustrous, their eyes are sunken, they won't look up, and their shoulders are slumped angrily. Their brow is always furrowed, and every movement of their hand looks like it's a clenched fist. You can pick these people out on sight. You don't know that you're picking them out, but you are. Ah, that's a good idea, BUS. Because the hatred, I think, actually physically damages your body when you carry it with you like that. Well, WordPress.com. Oh no, it's refieldwrites.wordpress.com. Pretty great. So that wasn't a link, it was URL. Aha, I win, Space Battleship. So, and I've been trying to tease this idea out, and I think I've got like the first part of it, where the fact that we are so disparate as individuals is actually a common strength. Or not a common strength. Well, it can be a common strength, but it can also be a common weakness. But the fact that we are so different from each other to the point where there's literally no other individual on the planet who is exactly like you, that everyone else is like that. So, and I think it's a beautiful thing. Yeah, exactly, BUS. And I think that actually hating people is a stressor. It doesn't relieve stress. So I've been trying to tease out this idea. So that's a commonality across all humanity. I think you're right, Mzaft. I think it does put you into it. Yes, it is. It is a bonsai tree, Kodiak bear, and if you look carefully underneath it, you might see something pretty neat. So that individuality is actually a commonality, and it exists across all the races, both of the sexes, and there are other the and that's obviously why you can't treat an individual like a demographic. So when you think that you might be feeling hatred for a particular demographic, you're hating them for aspects that are shared by everybody else in all of humanity. And if you aren't incredibly stupid, you will not be able to not see these things that you hate on a deep, visceral level in all of humanity. So I don't think you will be able to stop yourself from hating everybody. You are correct, Kodiak Bear. I'm waiting for someone to notice the little bear. And see, and if you hate everyone, guess what? That includes you. And there's nothing clearer than the mirror. There's no one you know better than you. There are lots of people who don't know themselves at all, which means they know everyone else even less. But that doesn't mean that that there's anyone that they know better than themselves. So you will not be able to fail to see the things that you hate about all of humanity in yourself when you look in the mirror. And you will look at yourself. It is kind of far away. Do you think this calls for a little bit more the subject calls for some more intimacy? I think it does. But this one is a little bit less stable. If I bump the desk, it'll go wobble. So if you think of if you think of who you are and you won't be able to not see what you hate in your own soul, then you will start directing that caustic motivation toward yourself. You will start acting in self-destructive ways. Yeah, I do have these two separate camera angles for if the subject does call for slightly more intimacy, Veteran Bear. I think it's important to have that. Well, now it's covered by the pop filter a little bit. So I'm thinking that in order to avoid self-destruction, hateful people find targets to vent their spleen upon in order to reduce the pressure of the poison building up in their own souls and bodies. Which is basically a restatement of what I said in my monologue, but I want to know what you guys think about that. I want to know what you guys think about the idea that spewing hatred at someone who you know isn't going to fight back. That might be just a way to avoid, right? To avoid the fact that you know you hate yourself. You hate everything and everyone. You're nihilistic and you want to destroy everything that you see, including what you see in the mirror. But instead of doing that, you want to relieve some of that pressure, just get some of that poison out. So you find someone who you know won't fight back. You're right, it does go against don't be a dickism. But yeah, that's why I think hateful people always escalate until they deal with their own hatred, their own misanthropy, their own self-loathing. Until they deal with that, until they can find a way to find an ideal to shoot for, an aim that's worthy of their effort, that isn't just sliding into deeper and deeper hatred of everyone and everything until they finally build up the hatred and anger necessary to desert their place in the line against their line in the battle against the forces of evil, against the forces of darkness, against nihilism, against hopelessness, against pestilence and starvation and predation, against the things that wipe our species off the face of the globe. If they think that if they finally build up enough poison in their soul that would allow them to shirk that position, yeah. I have not read that Space Battleship. Am I hitting a note he's talked about? Yeah, exactly. They will, because once they build up enough hatred, and it's hatred of everyone and everything, including themselves, that's when they check out. That's when they despair. That's when they eat a bullet or take the lazy slide to death on opiates or heroin or any of the other slow suicidal drugs. You're wrong, Mzaft. They don't look for fights. They look because I think you might. Now, conflation is a pretty nasty trick, Space Battleship. Um, you can be angry and confused. I don't think you can be hateful and confused. I don't think that's the same thing. Like, angry can be really close to hatred sometimes, but it isn't the same thing. You can be angry without being hateful. But yeah, Kodiak does have a point. I think that I think that hatred damages children more than it damages anyone else who it does damage. If you can get a child to hate, that's the same. That's well, it's not the same. That's one of the most awful things I can think of. If you can teach a child to hate, well, wow, that yeah, you're right. You're right, Veteran Bear. They seek to damage. If they pick a fight with someone, if they pick a fight with someone who they know can who can defend themselves successfully, then their ability to spread hatred in the world will be diminished. But if they pick a fight with someone they know either won't fight back or can't fight back effectively, then that means that their ability to spread hatred is enhanced. The clearest view one can have of yourself is the eyes of others. If you hate, yeah, that's an interesting point, B West. Um, uh, of the black people I've met, yeah, I like most of them. Of the black people I haven't met, I don't know. I haven't met them yet. Isn't that kind of a loaded question, Chase? Like, how can I like or dislike a demographic? That doesn't make very much sense. I haven't met all black people. I haven't met black people. I've met some people who are black. Sorry, I didn't realize I was leaning out of frame. Like, why would you ask that question, Chase? Why would you ask if I like black people? What are you trying to find out exactly? Nigerians, really? Best app something? I'm sure that certain talents aggregate in certain regions of the world. That makes sense because different regions will value different kinds of talent. Like the ability to throw an egg-shaped ball is really valuable in the United States of America for some reason. But the ability to run back and forth between two spots of Earth after hitting a small ball with a weirdly shaped bat is really valuable in Australia for some reason. I don't understand sports. Or why they're valuable. Oh, Nigeria must have a really strong culture. Um, I guess do your research, Chase. Find out how to do that. Yeah, I actually I'm not terribly great at going out and meeting people. I have literally one friend. So, well, I don't know. I'm not counting online friends, obviously, but in the real world, I have one friend who isn't actually related to me. So, I'm a little bit of a shut in like that. So, I'm not exactly your best sample for how people make friends because I'm not very good at it. I, yeah, I can't really blame anything on it. It's just it's not my strong point. That's what that is. How do I feel about gay people? How do I? I feel like they do things which are pleasurable to them that I find frightening. And I don't understand the attraction to inserting things into your anus because it looks painful to me. And I don't have that crossover between pain and pleasure that some people have. Well, I'm only in one club at the moment as well, Space Battleship, and it's online. Maybe I should join a club around here. That might be fun. Like I could be wrong about the whole, you know, homosexual sex being painful thing. It just looks like it would hurt. I don't know. Well, it's like Chase is assuming that since I think that HuffPo is silly for saying that eating Chick-fil-A means you hate gay people, he must think that I'm against gay marriage. When my actual position is that the state doesn't have any position in marriage, whatever, and it ought to be a private institution. And on top of that, I'm not so certain that the state should exist in the first place. I think that marriage licenses are a scam. So I think that's what Chase is getting at. I think that Chase is trying to figure out whether he gets to call me a homophobe. Sorry. Well, that's good for you, Chase Karen. It's good for you that you don't happen to have you don't happen to have difficulties in social situations because of the way that you were born. That's great for you. Raccoons are evil. No joke. They murder your chickens and eat your kittens and steal your dog's food. They're evil. Evil creatures, and I despise them, and they are vicious and frightening, and you shouldn't go near them because they will claw your eyes out. Well, I'm sorry you love creatures that are that are dangerous, especially if you have chickens. Right? Raccoons are the mortal enemy of a chicken. or owls. Raccoon didn't kill any of my chickens, but an owl killed one of them, and the raccoon did kill one of my kittens, and so I'm annoyed with it for that. And if I see him again, I'll kill him. He's quite the bastard. Yeah, I'm getting the feeling that Chase is probably a city person. I don't think you live out in the country. I don't think you've actually had to deal with raccoons. They'll kill your dog, man. Those things are tough. Oh my gosh, space battleship, that would be fantastic. The law does not have it's like it's just it should just be considered a contract. If the law deals with marriage at all, that would be so much simpler. And then we could just get rid of the income tax and bam, we're on our way to just a great society, I think. But yeah, I think I said what I had to say about all of that. Really? And you still like raccoons? Yeah, that's weird. Yeah, I guess you're a bit of an anomaly, Chase, because raccoons will kill your animals. They are not great. I've heard of some people taming raccoons, though, so maybe you have a tame one? Or maybe you've just never actually had to deal with them because you're lucky. Hey, Boulder Bear. Welcome back. I got a heckler. Or not really a heckler. He's trying to. I think he's just trying to feel me out. Maybe he started out thinking he was going to heckle me, but changed his mind. But he's kind of interesting, this fella. I think that might be his real name, so I'm not saying his whole name, but it is up on the screen. Yeah, possums are mean too. You would, Kodiak. Yeah, possums are really mean. I mean, they're not as aggressive as a raccoon is, and they're not as strong and tough as a raccoon either. But yeah, a raccoon will kill like a 60-pound dog. They're pretty dangerous. Well, that's the difference between taming a wild animal and having a domesticated animal, Emzaf. Uh, a domesticated animal has the docility bred into them over, hundreds of thousands of generations of selective breeding. If you just tame an animal, what you're really doing is teaching that it's more optimal for their survival to not attack you or run away from you because you give them food. Yeah, I haven't run into a possum who's more aggressive than a raccoon, though, Amsaft. You might have weird, huge possums. Yeah, well, foxes do like to kill chickens. That's why you have a dog on the property. They'll stay away, usually. We get some desert fox out here, Paso, but if you have a dog, they'll generally stay away. And coyotes will generally stay away too if you have a dog. Really? Space battleship. Are you sure that your possums don't, shoot lasers out of their eyes and have poisonous barbs on their tails because Australia tries to kill you with everything? Are you sure? Because I'm pretty sure that everything in Australia is deadly. It's just a continent of murder. Yeah. All right. It is incredibly warm in here, dudes. So I'm gonna go ahead and end it. I think we had a pretty good discussion on hatred earlier, what it is, how awful it is to carry it around with you. Well, yeah, you're right. Of course, be West, but they're my chickens, and I like my chickens, and so I'll be angry with a creature who wants to survive at the expense of the chickens that I own. So it's like, yeah, you should definitely not carry your hate around with you. Yeah. Thanks for coming to watch, everyone. This has been Field Talk, and I am the Field. Remember to hit that like button if you enjoyed the stream, enjoyed our conversation on hate, and if you want to sow the field, then go to patreon.me/Field Talk and subscribe. Hit the bell if you want to be notified, and follow me on Twitter at Field of Bears for your daily reminder that socialism always ends in starvation and genocide. Have a great night.